Thumbelina. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a kind-hearted woman who longed for a child, but had been unable to conceive. Her heart ached for a little one to call her own, so she sought the help of a wise old witch. She approached the witch with a plea in her eyes. "I wish to have a child. Please, can you help me?" the woman said. "I shall assist you," the witch replied. "Take this magical grain of rice. It's unlike ordinary grains. Plant it in a flower pot at home, and you shall see." Grateful, the woman planted the grain at home, and to her amazement, it grew into a stunning flower that looked like a diamond, with petals tightly curled like a bud. As she kissed the flower, a magical surprise unfolded. At the heart of the blossom sat a tiny, beautiful child, no bigger than her thumb. She named her Tiny. The woman created a lovely cradle for Tiny from a hazelnut shell, lined with purple flower petals. At night, she slept in her flower cradle, and, during the day, she played on a floating petal boat. One fateful night, while Tiny was asleep, a fat and slippery toad hopped into the room through a broken window. The toad had greedy thoughts, thinking Tiny would make a perfect wife for his son. The toad snatched Tiny in the hazelnut cradle and hopped away to a swampy pond. There, in the midst of the reeds, lived a froggy folks. The toad announced, "Meet your new bride." The toad thought Tiny was a lovely match for their son, who was just as plump and slimy as his father. But Tiny had other plans. She was determined to escape this fate and chose to run away. One night, while the toad folks were asleep, she fled on a pedal boat. Tiny sailed through many cities, and her boat was even admired by passing birds. She was happy to escape the toad's clutches, even though she was alone in the vast world. After some time, Tiny came upon a field of golden wheat, which she mistook for a forest. In the wheat field lived a kind family of field mice, who offered her food, warmth, and shelter. The field mice were delighted to have Tiny, and they even arranged a grand wedding for her. But Tiny was not thrilled with the idea of marrying another mouse, no matter how kind they were. As the seasons changed and the days grew colder, Tiny realized she longed for her real home. She missed the warm sunlight, the fragrant flowers, and the woman who had cared for her. One day, a swallow landed near Tiny, who had taken refuge in a cozy wheat hut. The swallow, who had migrated for the winter, shared the beauty of the outside world with Tiny. Tiny made a decision. She bid farewell to the field mice, who had been like family, and embarked on a journey to find her way back home. "Farewell, farewell. If the flowers see the swallows, send my greetings," said Tiny. Just then, a swallow arrived, and Tiny shared her sorrow. The swallow offered to take her to a warm land where the sun always shines and beauty thrives. Tiny climbed onto the swallow's back, and they embarked on an incredible journey, soaring over forests, seas, and snow-covered mountains. Tiny admired the breathtaking landscapes along the way. Finally, they reached a warm and enchanting place. Grapevines bore plump grapes, and happy children played under the sun. The swallow took Tiny to a place with a sparkling lake and a beautiful castle made of white jade. Here, she met a young prince equally small and cased in glass, just like her. The prince was captivated by Tiny's beauty and placed his crown on her head, asking her to be his queen. Tiny accepted, and she became the queen of the flower people. From each flower, men and women emerged, all elegantly dressed. But the happiest couple was the newlyweds. Tiny was given wings, allowing her to travel from flower to flower. Happiness abounded, and the swallow sang for the newlyweds. The prince renamed Tiny to Little Jade to match her newfound beauty. Sadly, the swallow had to return north, leaving Tiny behind in this beautiful land. That same swallow later built its nest by a storyteller's window, where it shared this tale with Chip Chip, so we could all learn this enchanting story. The end. Thank you all for following with me through Tiny's wonderful journey. Hope to see you in our next story. Cheers!